252. To view a list of IP addresses given to clients on the network by your Cisco router DHCP service, what command do you use? A. Show binding. B. Show IP DHCP binding. C. Show IP translations. D. Show IP DHCP translations. Answer. B. Show IP DHCP binding. The Show IP DHCP binding command displays the list of addresses that have been leased to clients on the network. 253. Which of the following implements NAT overload? A. FAT. B. SNAT. C. PAT. D. JOT. Answer. C. PAT. NAT overloading is accomplished by port address translation, PAT, along with the address translation feature of NAT. 254. Your manager has asked what would be a good use of static NAT. A. Share a single public IP address to all internal systems. B. For internal clients to surf the Internet. C. To allow DHCP to assign the address. D. For publishing an internal system to the Internet. Answer. D. For publishing an internal system to the Internet. A common use of static NAT, which is manually associating a single private IP address with a single public IP address, is for publishing an internal system out to the Internet. 256. Your serial port is connected to the WAN environment, with your fast Ethernet port connected to the LAN. When configuring NAT, how would you configure the serial port? A. NYR1, config if, #IP_NAT inside. B. NYR1, config, #IP_NAT inside. C. NYR1, config, #IP_NAT outside. D. NYR1, config if, #IP_NAT outside. Answer. D. NYR1, config if, #IP_NAT outside. Since the serial port is connected to the WAN, you want to share that IP address with all other systems connected on the LAN. Part of the process to configure NAT is to configure the interfaces as either inside, they are connected to the LAN, or outside, connected to the WAN, Internet. 257. What mechanism does NAT overloading use to allow one public IP address to be mapped to multiple systems? A. NAP. B. TAM. C. NAC. D. PAT. Answer. D. PAT. NAT uses port address translation to overload a single IP address to multiple systems inside the network. 258. You have created Access List 1 that lists the IP addresses for NAT usage. What command would you use to configure the router so that those addresses can use NAT? A. NYR1, config, #NAT Access List 1. B. NYR1, config, #IP_NAT interface serial 0/0 overload. C. NYR1, config, #IP_NAT inside source list 1 interface serial 0/0 overload. D. NYR1, config, #IP_NAT inside source list 1. Answer. C. NYR1, config, #IP_NAT inside source list 1 interface serial 0/0 overload. You need to configure NAT and specify access list 1 as the inside source list. In the same command, you are specifying serial 0/0 is to overload its IP address. 259. What type of NAT maps a single public address to all internal addresses? A. Overloading. B. Static. C. Internal. D. Public. Answer. A. Overloading. Overloading is a type of NAT that translates all private addresses on the network to the one public address. Overloading is achieved through port address translation, PAT. 260. Your serial port is connected to the WAN environment, with your fast Ethernet port connected to the LAN. When configuring NAT, how would you configure the fast Ethernet port? A. NYR1, config if #IP NAT outside. B. NYR1, config if #IP NAT parallel. C. NYR1, config if #PNAT public. D. NYR1, config if #IP NAT inside. Answer: D. NYR1, config if #IP NAT inside. In this scenario, the fast Ethernet port should be configured as the inside interface on the NAT device. 261. What command can you use to view the NAT translation table? A. Show IP NAT. B. Show NAT. C. Show NAT translations. D. Show IP NAT translations. Answer: D. Show IP NAT translations. To view the translation table of internal addresses to external addresses, you can use the Show IP NAT translations command. 263. What keystroke interrupts the boot sequence on a Cisco router in order to implement password recovery procedures? A. Control-Alt-Delete. B. Control break. C. FNF4. D. FN break. Answer: B. Control break. When trying to bypass a router's password, you interrupt normal boot operations with control break. 264. What is the default configuration register on most Cisco routers? A. 0 by 2142. B. 0 by 2100. C. 0 by 2102. D. 0 by 2202. Answer: COX2102. Most routers are configured for a default register of 0 by 2102, which specifies to load an iOS from flash memory and the startup config from NVRAM. 265. You wish to view the current configuration register value on a Cisco router. What command would you use? A. Show register. B. Show password. C. Show version. D. Show IP register. Answer: C. Show version. To view the current value of the configuration register on your router, use the Show version command. The value of the configuration register is displayed at the bottom of the output. 266. After you have recovered the password on a Cisco device, what command would you use to set the configuration register back to the default? A. Config register 0 by 2102. B. Config register 0 by 2142. C. Config register 0 by 2100. D. Config register 0 by 1102. Answer: A. Config register 0 by 2102. After you have recovered the password at the global config prompt, you can type the config register command and use the original configuration register value of 0 by 2102. 267. When you need to recover a password, what bit number do you manipulate in the configuration register? A. 1. B. 4. C. 6. D. 8. Answer: C. 6. You will enable bit 6 in the configuration registers to skip loading the startup config from NVRAM. 268. What is the new configuration register value after you configure it to bypass the loading of NVRAM? A. 0 by 2142. B. 0 by 2100. C. 0 by 2102. D. 0 by 2202. Answer: A. 0 by 2142. Once you enable bit 6 to omit loading the startup config, the new value on the configuration register will be 0 by 2142. 269. Extended access lists use what range for access list numbers? A. 1 to 99. B. 200 to 299. C. 100 to 199. D. 300 to 399. Answer: C. 100 to 199. An extended access lists uses an ID ranging from 100 to 199. Extended access lists allow you to filter traffic by source and destination IP address, source and destination port, and also by the protocol. Since version 12.0.1 of the Cisco iOS, extended access lists can also use numbers of 2000 to 2699. 271. What type of access control list only allows you to filter traffic by the source IP address? A. Extended. B. Standard. C. Basic. D. Advanced. Answer: B. Standard. A standard access control list allows you to filter traffic by only the source IP address. Standard access lists use an ID ranging from 1 to 99. Since version 12.0.1 of the Cisco iOS, standard access lists can also use number of 1300 to 1999. 272. What type of access control list allows you to filter by source and destination IP address, source and destination port, and protocol? A. Advanced. B. Basic. C. Extended. D. Standard. Answer: C. Extended. An extended access lists allows you to filter traffic by the source and destination IP address, source and destination port, and protocol. 274. You have created a standard access list #20 that permits a group of IP addresses. You would like to use this access list to control who can telnet into the router. What command would you use on the telnet ports? A. Access class 20 in. B. Access group 20 in. C. Allow 20 in. D. Allow telnet 20 in. Answer: A. Access class 20 in. When applying an access list to the telnet ports, you use the access class command when at the prompt for the port. It is important to note that when assigning an access list to an interface, you would use access group instead of access class while at the interface prompt. 276. What type of memory stores the routing table on Cisco routers? A. ROM. B. NVRAM. C. Flash. D. RAM. Answer: D. RAM. The routing table is stored in volatile memory, VRAM, also known as RAM, and is retained through reboots only because it is rebuilt from the startup config. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.